So I have been working on a third-person game for about a month now. Some of the core ideas that the game will have are shooting mechanics, melee combat system, soft cover system, and some parkour elements for basic traversal. In this video, I'm going to talk a little about the locomotion system that I made from scratch, and I'm also going to talk about the current state of my game. So ultimately, I ended up creating a locomotion system which was pretty good, I would say. It had stride warping, which adjusts the stride that the player takes based on the speed of the character. It also had orientation warping that orients the player's spine based on the current cardinal direction. And it also has distance matching, which plays an animation from a specific point in time based on the distance that it needs to cover up. Now we are going to talk about the melee combat system, but before I tell you how it's done, I need to tell you what it does. So technically we are looking for 4 features. The first is you can punch and kick, which is very obvious. The second feature that we're looking for is the combo system, so you can perform combos for both the punches and the kicks. The third feature that we want is grappling attack, which means that we can grapple our enemy and then it's gonna do some interactive move between the attacker, which is the one who's grabbing, and the victim, which is the person that's getting grabbed. And these are the 3 features, but the 4th feature is something that's known as motion warping, and it is going to be used for adjusting the position of the attacker and the victim, so that the animation plays out nicely. This is especially useful for grapple attacks, but we also use it for some of the combo system and things like that. For getting the punch and the kick was fairly straightforward and needed little to no debugging. It worked as it should have the first time, and it was very easy. The next thing that I had to focus on was the combo system, and to make it work, what I did was my attack animations would have a section, and if the player punches in that specific section, it's going to play the next attack animation, and this worked really great. But the next step was to add motion warping to all these attacks. Now you might be asking, why do we need motion warping for all of these attacks? Well, if you have a look at games like Spider-Man and Batman The Dark Knight Rises, you will see during the combat, when the player changes the target from one enemy to another, the player is getting close to the enemy, or in another word, you can say that the player is getting warped close to the enemy it's trying to attack, right? So this is one of the use cases of motion warping, and in our game we're trying to do the same thing. When we attack someone, we want to get the closest enemy and then try to warp the player close to that enemy so that our attack lands successfully. But since we are not a AAA studio, we are not going to have a transition animation when we are switching from one enemy to the other. Instead, we're just going to warp the attack animation itself, and it looks pretty okay in my opinion, if you ask me. So let's have a look at how we can implement this. So when the player attacks, we are going to fire invisible rays from the player, and if one of these rays it hits the target, then it's going to get the location of the target, and then the player is going to get a motion warp to that location which we got after hitting the target. We also use the same technique for grapple attacks. The only difference is we need to play the right animation for the victim and the attacker. You might have guessed that this is a very simplified example and I skip over several technical details, but that's to keep this video as high level as possible so that everyone can understand. But some of the things that I skipped are like calculating the right warp position based on the laser from the target, attack animation offset layers, and then we use the forward and the right background, and only after several days of suffering and crippling depressions, this is what I ended up with, and I'm proud of what I could achieve.